Hi, I'm Alicia, and we are in Magdala, in the Galilee region, the place that is the home to Mary Magdalene, the woman who we know as the Apostle of the Apostles. Now, aside from that statement, we know very little about her, and this place, this setting helps fill in some of those blanks. So far, a first-century synagogue has been unearthed here, as well as paved streets, the ruins of mansions, and 3 ritual baths that use groundwater rather than rainwater. This means Magdala has sophisticated plumbing. The paved streets and mosaics in the mansions suggest wealth. Magdala seems to have been a thriving port city at the forefront of commerce and culture. In its midst lived a woman named Mary. The village tells us she was probably exposed to the world. From the Gospels, we know she was a follower of Christ. She was at the crucifixion. She witnessed the resurrection. And she was the first person given the task of spreading the message of the resurrection. But how did she get there? All 4 of the Gospels refer to her as Mary the Magdalene. Now, married women were described differently. For example, Mary the wife of Clopas, or Joanna the wife of Chuza. So we know Mary Magdalene was unattached. 3 of the Gospels first introduce us to Mary Magdalene at the crucifixion. But Luke mentions her earlier. In chapter 8 of his Gospel, Luke says, "Soon afterwards, he went on through the cities and villages, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. The 12 were with him, as well as some women who had been cured of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward, Chuza, and Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their resources." So she's part of a group of women who provided for Jesus and the apostles out of their own means. So she had money, she had her own means, and because she was unattached, they were her own. Also, she's described as one from whom 7 demons had gone out. Now, she's not a sinner in this portrayal, but someone who has been possessed. Now remember, in Jesus' day, that might be what we today call mental illness. It might have been depression, anxiety, or other psychological issues. Whatever it was, it took over her, changed her personality, affected her daily life, and it kept her from having healthy relationships. But then something happened, probably right here. We don't have the details, but we can imagine it based on what we already know. Jesus, the Nazarene, came to this area to teach, probably even in this synagogue. A buzz would have built up in the region, and in the town, people would have been talking about him. Maybe it took a little while before curiosity got the better of her, but finally one day, she quietly slipped into the crowd as he was teaching. She looks around and sees people of all different ages, backgrounds, professions, and social standing gathered around this man. He speaks to them. He touches them. His words heal them. After he finished teaching, perhaps she approached him. And he didn't treat her like that Mary. He wasn't afraid to be seen talking to her. He gazed at her without fear, without derision. He spoke to her like a normal person, an equal, and maybe even invited her to come along with him to his next stop. It was done. He was the real deal. He wanted nothing from her but to tell her of the Father's love for her. Whatever she had in Magdala, she packed up, she sold, she gave away, and she moved. She had a completely new mission in life, and that was to make sure that other people could have the face-to-face encounter with Jesus the Nazarene, the same encounter that she had. Because of that meeting in Magdala, some years later, Mary finds herself at the foot of the cross. Even though meeting Jesus changed her forever, it didn't mean life would always be roses. The worst thing she could imagine comes to pass. This man who changed her life is killed. hung on a cross to die. She stands at the foot of the cross, weeps, takes comfort from the other women at the foot of his cross. When he breathes his last, she's there watching. When the body is taken down and carried off to the tomb, she's there. She stays away on the Sabbath because she has to. She locks herself away with the apostles, with Our Lady, bides her time. But then she can't stand it any longer. On the third day after his death, she must go to him. She rises early and she goes to the tomb. Now, some of the Gospels say she went with other women to anoint the body. But the point is, in all 4 Gospels, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb. She finds the stone rolled away and the tomb empty. Now, again, each Gospel tells it slightly differently, but the common point here is that she again meets someone who tells her, he's not here. And then it clicks. This is what Jesus had been talking about. The temple destroyed and rebuilt on the 3rd day. He has risen. She rushes back to the place where the apostles are locked up together, wallowing in their fear. She bursts through the door and breathlessly exclaims, "I have seen the Lord!" and then continues to tell them what she saw and what he said to her. They are at peace. Mary Magdalene, the once off-kilter woman with problems, is their apostle. She brings them the message they have been waiting for, the one thing they have been waiting to hear since that horrible, horrible day at Golgotha. The woman with the 7 demons is the very person who sees the face of Christ and recognizes him for who he is. And because of that, she becomes exactly who she was created to be. From Magdala, I'm Alicia Ambrosio.